Hey, what is going on, guys? It's Gabe,
It's Caleb.
and today you are watching another episode of the Positive Outlook Podcast. And Caleb, how does every great episode start?
Every great episode starts with a question of the day.
All right, so the question of the day, my turn this week. So, what is one situation, one challenge that you have faced that you had no clue how to get through it? You didn't have any tools for it, but you just had to believe in yourself and move forward anyway.
Ooh, it's always the on the spot questions you like the
Yeah,
most.
they're loaded.
All
They're
right,
loaded.
it's a good way to start a Monday. I guess I would say probably. Let me think,
Mhm.
Mister Philosophical Man over here. No way to move forward. I guess. Uh, I don't want to stall out too long here. I got to
Yeah.
think though.
I could
Gotta,
give an answer. I thought of one. I
okay.
thought of
All right.
So, mine was my first ever real estate deal. So,
Okay.
when I was writing, well, it wasn't even a deal. I was listing a piece of property, and it was like my parents were so excited that I got my real estate license, so they told my neighbor, and my neighbor's like, "Well, I have a lot of land that I would like listed." And I literally just got my license, didn't finish training or anything like that. And so I learned a couple lessons from this, but mainly I was like, all right, I'm capable, I'm not really sure what I'm doing yet because I didn't go through training or anything like that. I only have my license. So, but I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to try. So I went and filled out all the paperwork, and then I was reviewing everything, and I called my broker manager and I was like, hey, I got a listing, and like, I just want to make sure that I went through everything properly, yada, yada. So I meet up with him, and I just botched it. I did I did such a bad job. And like I went into the meeting with the client like super confident. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And this was like 5 years ago. But I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's fill this out. And then I filled the whole thing out. And while I'm sitting there like filling it out with them, I really didn't understand what I was filling out. But I mean, it's pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory, but there's some things that I just wasn't sure what I was doing. But I'm pretty sure I nailed it. And so then I go to my broker manager and I'm like, is this right? And he's like, heck no, you're not even close. So I had to restart the whole thing. Like he basically walked me through how to list it. I had to erase the whole thing and then go back with my client, sit down with them and refill the whole thing out. So that was my
Gotcha.
situation. Yeah.
All right, I was just gonna go with this one from the start, so I should have just ran with it.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll go with when I did my instrument check ride. So an instrument rating, not a lot of people know this, is a rating you get so you can fly in the clouds. You can fly above 18,000 feet, which is in alpha airspace, and you can have less limitations when you carry passengers. Um, and I was studying for this for quite a while, and I got the one examiner that I knew I did not want. Like if there was one that I could have had, it was anyone but this guy.
hmm
And it was just because he was known to have 3 hour oral exams and 3 hour flight exams, and
Mm.
I was not looking forward to it one bit. And funny story, I actually failed my first attempt based off of one question on the oral exam. And anyways, I was going back in for my flight, and after I retook and passed the oral exam, and there's something called a partial panel, which is where they fail basically everything on you.
hmm
And I knew that as long as I didn't get this partial panel, I would be able to pass this exam, no problem.
Right.
And what do you know? I got the full partial panel, and it was so rough on my first attempt. I did what's called a go around, where I was coming down and I was looking at my altitudes, and I kind of like lost focus and just kind of panicked. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go around and reset. And so I go full throttle, went past the runway, came back in, and then did it again. And this time I was just kind of like, you know what? We got to do this. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way I'm getting through this whole exam and just skipping this part. Like, that's not an option.
Yeah.
And which it shouldn't be, because for flight safety purposes, you need
Right.
to be able to do it. But, anyways, so I pulled it off, and it felt like a con almost, because it was just like I was barely able to pull it off. But
hmm But
I
you did
just
it.
I went for it.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing here is sometimes when you feel like your back's up against the wall, or maybe you don't have the proper tools or the proper resources to move forward. I think the most important thing is just believing in yourself, right? And almost faking it till you make it, right?
Yeah,
And eventually you're not faking it anymore. So I
and
think
and that's definitely an important part is is making sure that you're not faking it anymore, making
Yeah.
sure that, you fake it till you make it, but you're not fake the whole way.
Yeah. Yeah, eventually, like, that's the point, right? Fake it till you make it, and then eventually you don't have to fake anymore. Eventually
Mhm.
you made it, right? That's the second part there. So, what's our topic today? What are we talking about?
Today we're talking about having faith, taking
Yeah,
that leap.
believing in yourself. So, what does it mean to believe in yourself? What does that mean to you?
Well, to me, it means something a little different, just because I don't know. It's not to get like too philosophical, but I kind of feel like you need that known greater purpose, and to me,
Mhm.
that comes a lot through God
Mhm.
and my relationship with Him. Just because it's kind of a rock whenever everything else is shaken. I know that I have that to fall back onto because I know that at the end of the day, I'm gonna fail over and over and over
Mhm.
because I'm a weak person. That's just who I am. And
Right.
I really think a lot of people can relate to that because as humans, what's the best thing that we do? It's fail.
Oh yeah. True. True. I was like thinking, what do you want my answer to be? Because there's a lot. But yeah, you're right. Humans fail a lot. Um, and I think self-belief isn't necessarily about arrogance. It's more about just believing in your own potential and your abilities. And you gain a lot of self-belief by developing tools, and you develop tools by failing. So I think by being able to go through challenges and actions that you thought you weren't going to be able to complete, by going through those things, you're able to develop new tools so that the next time you're a little bit stronger. And you can just keep tacking that on and keep building yourself up and up and up.
And it's kind of like a muscle. I mean, you give it resistance, and at first it doesn't want to do anything. At first it wants to fold, it wants to give up. But if you keep applying resistance, it will build resilience to that resistance.
Yeah. Imagine if Michael Jordan had self-doubt, right? Imagine if in those situations where he didn't think that he could complete his task, instead of taking action and taking a step and saying, I can do this, instead of doing that, he just said, well, maybe this is just too challenging for me. Maybe the however many times I've fallen, I just don't want to get up anymore. Or same thing with Donald Trump or any big successful person like that. Imagine if they just gave up, right? Imagine the potential that we all have inside of us and everything that we can accomplish if we just keep going, if we keep putting one foot in front of the other, and if we stop giving up, right?
And I mean, we wouldn't have the Rocky series. We wouldn't have six versions of Rocky never giving up if you just gave up.
Yeah, right. And it's a patient game, right? Believing in yourself. It's about planting the seed. And we've been talking so much about gardens lately on this podcast, but I want to bring it up again, right? Because if you're going to begin this journey of self-belief and self-growth, you have to plant the seed today and don't expect yourself to be able to complete all of your big milestones and accomplishments by tomorrow. It's really cool if you do, but that's more so motivation, that's not really discipline. But plant that seed and then wait for it to grow. And you have to water it. You have to be doing the proper things to be able to make it grow, or else it will not.
And one thing I've been hyper focusing on, or at least attempting to, is planting the right seeds. You can't plant pumpkin seeds and then expect daisies. Like, that's not how that works. You
Yeah.
have to make sure that you are planting what it is that you're aiming for. And I think that that's kind of a big one for me right now, is just kind of making sure I'm planting the right seeds and taking care of them in its specific particular way.
Yeah.
Because as much as it brings comfort knowing that there's other people in your situation or not, your situation is always going to be unique. There's always going to be specific things that you can't just Google. There's
Hmm.
going to be specific things that you have to be able to just go. You just have to be able to go all in on it and just figure it out. I mean, that's kind of where we're at coming at from this episode, but there's not instructions for absolutely every intricate part.
Right.
And but what you have to fall back on is that success leaves clues, and so you are able to look around and say, "Okay, well, if this person has a garden, now I know it's possible." And you can kind of break it down like that.
Hmm.
But I just it's kind of that reap what you sow mentality of make sure you're planting the right seeds.
Right. And then you also you want to make sure it's planted in proper soil, right? You got to water it. You got to do all these things. So there's a bunch of different steps that come into this that can help you strengthen your self belief, right? And I think a really important one is reframing your negative thoughts or your negative beliefs. So I think that's a really important first step of understanding your situation. Tony Robbins is huge on changing your story. So
Mhm.
everybody in their life has a certain story that they always tell themselves. It's almost like an identity for them. And it's a limiting belief that prevents them from overcoming challenges, hurdles, everything like that. So um take take a person who's depressed, right? And their friends, their family are always like, "Well, when are you going to get a girlfriend?" And they always tell themselves like, I'm just depressed. Like I never get outside, I never talk to anybody. That's why I can't get a girlfriend, right?" And that becomes part of their identity. They soak that in, and because they say it so much, it's one of their negative thoughts that they just never reframed. It becomes part of their identity. So if you can shift that and say, well, okay, maybe an issue that I'm struggling with is that I'm depressed, but that's not my problem. That's how I've been dealing with it. Is I've just been staying inside. Like, let's go outside, let's go meet some people, let's have fun, let's go to the bars, stuff like, I mean, obviously healthy ways, but stuff like that where you need to reframe your negative thoughts and change your story, because so many people just have a negative story that they're telling themselves and that's their new identity. But you can change that at any point because you adopted that at one point. You adopted that negative story and you can adopt a new one tomorrow, you know?
And it that alone takes time. I mean, you
Mhm.
have to have that faith that it's going to get better because it's tough. When you've told yourself a specific
Yeah.
story for long enough, even if it was subliminally, even if you accidentally ended up in that spot, or not accidentally, but I should say unintentionally,
Mhm.
'cause I don't really believe there's very many things that happen on accident. I think for the most part, it's unintentional behavior that really tends to be one of the biggest drivers into that kind of cycle,
Yeah.
generally speaking. Um, and so I think it's important that that alone takes time. You have to let that plant start growing and really nurture it. Be very gentle with it because it is so much easier to be said than done. And I know I've said that quite a bit in our last few podcasts. It's
Mhm.
because it's true, but it's really really important to be extra patient when it comes to reframing your story because that is huge into who you are, and you don't want to wrap your identity around these warped self images.
Yeah, because 'cause they're not true. It's simply not true, right? Everybody has the potential to become happy, and happiness isn't about being happy all the time. Happiness is just about knowing that you have the tools and resources to overcome any obstacle thrown your way. And then that goes with patience as well, right? Patience isn't about just sitting around and doing nothing. Patience is about putting in the work and knowing the results will come in due time. So when you're going through these situations and you're not seeing results coming right away, continue forward. Keep putting one foot in front of the other because eventually the results will come. And that's important for you guys to remember. You need to celebrate your small wins because when they do come, you really need to own them. And I think Caleb and I have already agreed. Like that's something we really struggle with because we have big picture, we have this huge goal in mind, and even though we're getting the small wins, we're not necessarily owning them. We're not celebrating them because it's not the end goal yet. And so sometimes you can lose a little bit of motivation, or sometimes you lose that self belief and you start to gain self doubt. And you're like, am I capable of becoming greater? And then you look back and you say, well, 4 years ago, I would have been so happy to see where I'm at today. And then you can own that. You can own that new perspective and that new identity and tell yourself a new story moving forward. Say, hey, I'm accomplishing shit. I'm getting stuff done and I'm killing it. And what's preventing me from doing this more? Nothing. I'm going to keep doing it.
And the other thing too is if you're really struggling for that push towards something greater, use the fact that you can't use 4 years ago you would be proud. Don't focus on the fact that you 4 years ago would be upset with where you're at now. Focus on where you now would want to see
Hmm.
yourself in 4 years. Because that's another thing I find is a big drag when it comes to, trying to find motivation or trying to find a way forward is hyper focusing on the past. And it's very, very easy to do. I
Yeah.
promise you that it is so easy to do. And it forms a lot of regret oftentimes, especially personally speaking. But take a look at where you're at now and say, in 4 years, I don't want to be in this position. Even if that right there is the seed that you're planting, and then you can start growing it and finding techniques to make it even more positive. Maybe
Yeah.
you can set those specific goals for what you want in those 4 years. Whatever it is, if that's part of why you're looking so down on yourself, start shifting your focus forward. Start putting
Hmm.
those blinders on and keep your eyes forward because you go where your eyes are pointed.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to focus. I mean, this is I think my biggest point for the episode is that when you're dealing with self-doubt, when you want to build your belief in yourself and you want to achieve more, you want to become greater, the best thing you can do is step outside of your comfort zone. And all you have to do is you have to find a goal. You have to find something that just is lying just outside of your comfort zone. Set a goal to hit it and then take action on it because action cures anxiety. It's just what happens. When you're anxious about a situation, as soon as you take action on it, as soon as you complete what you're trying to do, the anxiety fades. And then you gain that newfound confidence and you say, I did it. And I can do it. That was something that I was afraid of doing and I just crushed it. Let's do it again. And then you almost get like that high, that self righteous high, and you can move forward through any challenge. And I think that's a really important part to take away from this is just find a spot outside of your comfort zone that you can tackle and then tackle it. Believe in yourself.
And as you were saying, when you're starting to step out that comfort zone, make sure you do take mental note of those little steps because 1,000 little steps gets you a lot farther than one big step. And you'd be
Hmm.
surprised where you could end up. You might not even realize that you're a whole different person in the making.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like one of those things where it just takes time for your actions to catch up. And
Right.
that a lot of people focus on the negative side effect to that, but if you need to start focusing on the positive.
Yeah, and honestly, stop seeing your goals as black and white and understand that, right, when you're climbing a mountain, it's not necessarily the peak that is the best part. Maybe it's discovering who you became through the climb. You know, you get to the end and you say, "Man, well, remember when I took my first step and I was so excited. Remember when I fell when I was on that one ledge and I hurt my knee, but I remembered that I can get back up and keep going. Do you remember who I grew into become because of all these challenges? And now I'm at the peak and maybe that wasn't even my goal anymore. Maybe through climbing, I'm like, I don't even care to see the peak anymore. I just want to prove to myself that I'm capable and that I'm strong. And your goals might change while you're doing these things, but it's not like that's what this episode's about. This episode isn't about just like finding a goal and sticking on it. It's about growing through the journey and believing in yourself.
100%. And it's about having patience and it's about knowing that no matter what, at the end of the day, it's going to work out the way it needs to.
Yeah,
Might not
absolutely.
always be what we wanted, but it's going to end up being what we need.
Yeah. I like it's the corny Facebook mom quote of in the end everything will be okay. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. I was thinking about that quote the other day, and I was like, "Well, what about like when it is okay? Like my life's good. I finally like did all of that. I'm like, am I gonna die? Like, yeah. Is this
It's like
the
an
end?
Avengers. You're just going to
Yeah,
fade away.
yeah. So, well, what do you think? You have anything else you want to add to today's episode? That was pretty much everything that I had.
Yeah, I mean, guys, seriously, just start today. Start believing in yourself today.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done. It's terrifying. And it's one of those things where you can create a million excuses on why you shouldn't believe in yourself.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, they're just excuses. It's okay. You can actually believe in yourself. Take that first step.
Yeah. Most honestly, you go and ask anybody in your life, right? And most of the people in your life believe in you. They believe that you're capable of overcoming any challenge. But the most important person that you need to believe in yourself is you, because people often never rise above the opinions of themselves. So if you hold a low opinion of yourself and you're telling yourself a bad story about your identity, you're barely ever going to rise above that. So if you consistently can rise above that and start telling yourself a new story, soak in a new identity, that you are growing, that you are in a season of growth, and that you are here to kick ass and take names, own it. That's it. That's what I want to end you guys with.
Amen.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still watching at this point, make sure to like and subscribe, comment, say hi, say something nice, share us with your friends. Other than that, happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Peace.